Welcome to the Undisputed podcast. I'm your host, Jenny Taft. This podcast is the full show from today's episode of Undisputed from start to finish. They've got a busy slate, so skip Shannon. Let's get to it.
For the next 2 hours, our goal is just to give you a little break from these shockingly tough times by doing what we love to do, which is debate the hottest sports topics. We're at home. We hope you're at home now also watching us. I'm here in my little hovel, west side of Los Angeles, little place called Century City. My debate partner, Shannon Sharpe, as usual, is way up the mountain from here, up a street called Beverly Glen, up into Bel Air, his palatial estate. Good morning up there, Shannon Sharpe. How are you?
Actually, I'm in a Frobello in Bel Air.
Oh, really? Oh,
Skip,
well,
Skip, I brought you a little something today. You don't buy it? You want to see this, Skip?
Remember, I can't see you, so I have no idea what you're doing. So you have to go audio here and tell me what you're doing. What is it? I don't know.
You don't have a monitor? Do you have a monitor? If you look down at your monitor, you can see what I'm doing. You don't have a monitor? Oh.
I don't have a monitor. I don't.
Well, this year you'll be seeing a lot of this. It could be something like green with an eagle's wing on it. I'm not saying it's an Eagles helmet, but it could possibly be an Eagles helmet.
Well, as we speak, Fox Bet has the Eagles at 18-1. Tied with Tampa Bay to win the Super Bowl. My Dallas Cowboys are 16-1, which I think is a little bit better odds. So good luck with that. So enough of that.
We'll see.
Again, for the next 2 hours, we're going to do what we do best, or we hope we do best, which is debate these hot sports topics. Number one, wait a minute, the Bucs are saying that Tom Brady recruited them. And number two, the Chargers still haven't jumped at the chance to sign Cam Newton. Why is that? And number three, what in the name of Tom Brady is Bill Belichick doing in New England, or should I ask not doing in New England? And finally, and this is going to be my favorite topic of the day, we delve into the greatest white hope who ever came down the pike, Larry Bird, 1979, the most watched basketball game in the history of this country. I think in the history of the world. We will get to that in just a few minutes. But first up here, speaking of Larry Bird, the ESPN fan poll is now down, and it's to choose, obviously, the greatest college basketball player ever. It's now down to the finals, featuring, said Larry Bird, versus, guess who? Him again, Michael Jordan. So, Shannon Sharpe, I hate to ask you this question, but if Michael Jordan wins greatest college player, which he probably will, and that's on top of the fact that a whole lot of us out here already believe that Michael Jordan is obviously the greatest NBA player ever, how much would that on top of that damage your case that LeBron James is the GOAT?
Well, Skip, Michael and LeBron took two different paths. Michael went to college for 3 years. LeBron came straight out of high school. Michael did win a national championship. He jumped into our lexicon basically when he hit that shot over Georgetown in 1982. But Skip, Michael's legacy is the NBA. Nobody, Skip, look, these are millennials voting. Nobody believes Michael Jordan is the greatest college basketball player, but people that never saw some of the other greats play. You and I both know that. How are you the greatest college basketball player ever, and you win one national championship, and you win that championship as the second best player on your own team? James Worthy was National College Player of the Year. James Worthy was the #1 overall pick. Also on that team was Sam Perkins, Skip, can you tell people Sam Perkins was the top 5 pick if I'm not mistaken, right? Michael Jordan, Sam Perkins, James Worthy, Matt Doherty, who was a good college player, could shoot the basketball. But Skip, look, you and I both know this. People it's hard to separate, because when you think of Michael Jordan, the first thing you think of Jumpman, you think of the shoe, you think of his NBA legacy. Skip, Michael Jordan was a very good college basketball player, but he was not pantheon of historically great. Christian Laettner had a better college career than Michael Jordan. Now, obviously, he didn't have the NBA career, but when you say four Final Fours, 2 national championships, 2 most outstanding players, a National College Player of the Year, Skip, he had a greater college career than Mike. Skip, Mike averaged 20 points, I think, his sophomore season. And we get it. The only man that's ever been able to contain Michael Jordan was Dean Smith. His offense was his offense. You played within that offense. We get all of that. But it's hard for me to believe that someone had a better career than one Kareem Abdul-Jabbar when you go 3 national titles, 3 most outstanding players, 3 National Player of the Year, and you lose 2 college games in 3 years. Look, Michael is Michael, but LeBron didn't go to college, so we don't know what he could or would have been. We just know this. He went straight from high school to the NBA, and he's been the best player for over a decade. That's what we do know. Okay.
I hear everything you just said, and some of it actually made some sense to me. But the fact remains that ESPN is doing a fan poll, and that it looks like Michael Jordan, in something of a surprise even to me, the biggest Jordan fan, is going to win greatest college player ever. So what's happening here, Shannon Sharpe, is that it's now forcing even me, his biggest fan, the guy who covered him in Chicago as a Chicago Bull, to reconsider his college career, because I never even think about Michael Jordan as a college basketball player. So now I have to think, interesting. So now it's down to Bird versus Jordan. Well, both had 2 years of first-team All-American. No surprise, but even Steven. And yet Larry Bird, as great as he was his last year, which was his senior year at Indiana State or his 4th year in college, that he went 33-0, but lost, obviously, to Magic Johnson and Gregory Kelser in that classic NCAA final in Salt Lake City, which I covered and we're going to talk about in a few minutes here on Undisputed. But the point is that Larry Bird didn't win a ring, as great as that run was, and I thought it was the greatest underdog run ever, all the way to a finals.
I agree.
But he didn't win a ring, and it forced me to rethink about the greatest college game I ever covered as far as star power. I was courtside that night in New Orleans, as you brought up, 1982, and I got to watch firsthand, like reach out and touch them almost, this great collection of North Carolina talent versus Georgetown talent. And I'm sure you watched the game, but you pointed out that it was always, obviously, Jordan is a true freshman. And it was Daugherty, who was a really nice college player, as you talked about. James Worthy, Sam Perkins, Jimmy Black was sort of the point guard on that team. Against Georgetown, featuring Sleepy Floyd, who could just flat out light it up. And we saw him light it up for Golden State as a pro basketball player. And obviously, Patrick Ewing. And then they had another collection of various Freddie Browns. And they were a good team. They were a deep basketball team. Maybe not in pro talent quite like Carolina was. But that's the game that I sat back and said, this is like Super Bowl 13 that I covered in Miami when it was Dallas Cowboys versus Pittsburgh Steelers, and it was just wall-to-wall Hall of Famers on both sides. That was the greatest collection of pro football talent I ever saw. This was the greatest collection of college basketball talent on one floor in one game. And obviously, now I'm reminded, and you did point this out to your credit, that with 15 seconds left, some kid named Mike Jordan, he wasn't yet Michael Jordan, Mike Jordan pulled up and hit maybe a 18-foot jump shot, 20-foot jump shot?
Yeah, it was about 18 feet.
To win the game. Yeah, 18 feet. And remember, it was the classic case of they were down one. That was a do or die shot. And you always hate it when I bring up the fact that, well, LeBron took the shot with the game tied and he had a safety net of overtime. Well, this was the first glimpse of Michael Jordan taking a do or die down one. Got to make it. If you miss it, you're probably going to lose the game. And he was a true freshman and he flat out ripped it. And that was the first moment I really even noticed him, because he didn't come in to college basketball with the acclaim that a lot of these kids do, where you say, like, you know, oh my God, it's Zion. We knew Zion was coming early on, you know, back when he was maybe a junior in high school. Even Ja Morant was a great high school player, and we knew he was going to explode on the college scene. So the point I'm making is, this is the cherry on top, because all of a sudden it's forcing me to think about, well, wait a second. He arrived as a true freshman at Carolina. He showed you he was going to be all-time clutch, because he won the NCAA championship game with a dagger clutch shot. And my point to you is, I think the world is going to have to refocus now on, wow, he was that great as a college freshman. And again, LeBron came straight into the league, and I thought he was, he was really good. That first night in Sacramento, he scored 25 points at Kings. He was really good. But you say, well, wait a second, James Worthy was the best player on that team. Well, in hindsight, the truth was, I think Mike Jordan was the best player on that team. We just didn't recognize it yet, because, to your point, Dean Smith wouldn't let us recognize it. He was the only man who could, to your quotation, who could contain Michael Jordan. Your thoughts?
You remember, Skip, the previous year, North Carolina had lost the national championship game to Indiana. If I'm not mistaken, Skip, that was also, they ended up playing that game. There was an assassination attempt on President Reagan's life. It was. And they still ended up playing the game. If I'm not mistaken, they lost to Indiana, with Isaiah. Isaiah led Indiana to the championship. And I thought that Carolina team might have been more loaded, because they had Al Wood, they had James Worthy, but they lost Rolando Turner and Isaiah Thomas. Skip, James Worthy was the #1 overall pick. And you remember the reason why Michael was able to get that shot, they swung it because they had went to a zone to keep James Worthy, because he was killing. They had no answer. You know, James Worthy for the longest time had the quickest first step in all the NBA. One step, he's to the basket, laid it up. They could do nothing with him. So what Coach Thompson decided to do, let's go to a zone. We're going to make someone else beat us other than James Worthy, the National College Player of the Year. They did a great job of swinging the ball. Mike rose up. But if you remember, Skip, Georgetown still had an opportunity to win the game. Freddie Brown got sidetracked and passed the ball to James Worthy almost at midcourt. And Worthy took off. They ended up fouling him. So Georgetown still had an opportunity. It wasn't like that shot actually won the game. Now, in hindsight, Skip, you know, it put them ahead, and they never relinquished the lead. But Georgetown had an opportunity. Fred Brown got sidetracked. He passed the ball, and we know what happened, Skip. But all that being said, Skip, you and I both know Michael Jordan did not have the greatest college career of the players that we're talking. Skip, look, that's not to take away from his NBA legacy. That's not to take away from that shot that he hit or him winning National Player of the Year. But you know that's not the case.
Okay, I'm going to go back to your first points. I was there that night in Philadelphia when they decided to go ahead and play after the Reagan assassination attempt, to your point, in Indiana, and Isaiah Thomas beat Carolina. So I got you on that. And as I just told you, I was there that night in New Orleans when, at the end of the game, Fred Brown just went blind. He just went deer in headlights, and he lost it and just passed sideways to, for a moment, what he thought was his teammate, and it was to James Worthy, who then goes down and misses both free throws that kept the game still within a point. But again, it's the first indication that Jordan's career was so blessed, because all that anybody ever remembers now, like if Fred Brown makes a correct pass and let's say Sleepy Floyd nails a jumper at the buzzer to win the game, well, then we don't remember that some kid named Mike Jordan, a freshman, won the game. Well, he was blessed because Fred Brown helped bless him with a cursed pass that lives in Georgetown infamy, obviously. So the point is that, to your point, why didn't Michael Jordan have the greatest college career? Well, I got to tell you, as great as Dean Smith was, it was Dean's fault, because he forced Michael to play within a system that cost them national championships. Because I look at what happened, and I say, wait a second. When Michael was a freshman, Mike Jordan, he was allowed to take 11 shots a game, pretty paltry. Then his second year as a sophomore, he took 15 shots a game, not many.
Right.
And his last year, he was still allowed to take only 15 shots a game. Well, okay, so he averaged 14 as a freshman, then 20, then 20. Well, was that Michael Jordan's fault or was that Dean Smith's fault? Because I got to tell you, it's so bad that a lot of people didn't see Michael Jordan coming out of college, which is why he fell to what? The third overall pick.
Third pick, right. Nobody saw, nobody could have foretold he would be this good. Now, we know he could elevate. We knew he could shoot. Skip, you were talking about he developed that mid-range shot. That 18-footer told you he always had that in his repertoire. What he did is that he perfected it. It was almost it was unguardable. And when he pull up with that shot, you know, you start running back down the court, take the ball out, and run back down the court because you got to get, you know, they were getting on defense and you get ready to set your offense because that was a money shot.
Okay, so look what happened to Jordan. In his sophomore year, they got eliminated by Georgia in the regional final. That's a crime. And to me, that's on Dean Smith. Then in his last year at Carolina, his junior year, they lost to Indiana in the Sweet 16. Not a crime. It's Bobby Knight and company, but still, Bobby Knight was the guy who told Portland, you better take this Michael Jordan. And the answer back was, we need a center, Sam Bowie, of course. And Knight's classic reply was, why don't you play Jordan at center then if you need a center, because you better take this guy. So he saw up close and personal just how dangerous this guy was. So to me, Shannon, in the end, it looks like his airness was also his goatness in college basketball, according to a lot of voters on ESPN.com. Yeah. And you're going to have to live with that.
And Skip, you remember the last time we let a lot of people vote in a large number? You remember what happened? We're not going to go there, but you know what happened. But here's the thing, Skip. It's funny how Dean Smith didn't slow big game James Worthy because he was well over 20. Skip, let me put it to you like this. You remember the Miracle on Ice. Had they beat the Soviets and lost, I think they lost to Finland in the gold medal round, that would have been all for naught. It's the same thing with Jordan's shot. Okay. Had he made that shot and then Freddie Brown not do what he done, it would have been all for naught. So we think that, and everybody, the way they put the Miracle on Ice, Skip, we think that was the gold medal game, but it actually wasn't. We think Michael Jordan shot ended the game. There was no more play after that. Everybody stormed the court. It wasn't. It was still like, 15? If I'm not mistaken, Skip, I think it was like 15 seconds still left on the clock.
There's 15 seconds left. And to your point about Miracle on Ice, yet another game I covered. I was at Lake Placid for the 1980 Winter Olympics. Maybe I'm dating myself here, but the point was that was a Friday night game. It was tape delayed because, as I found out in the afternoon, nobody cared about it because remember, the Soviet hockey team had crushed us in an exhibition at Madison Square Garden. I think it was like 10-2 or 12-2. Yeah, 10-0. It was such a wipeout that I wasn't even sure I wanted to cover the Friday night game, U.S. versus Russia. And I went to the press liaison who gave us the press tickets for each event. This is like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And I said, this guy named Mike Moran, legendary. And I said, Mike, do you have any more tickets left for the hockey game tonight? He said, do I have any left? He said, I got tons left. Nobody wants to go. So I got to sit in the first row of that tiny little arena there in Lake Placid, downtown Lake Placid, if there is such a thing as downtown. And you know the rest of the story. So I had the story. Some of my rival competitors I was in Dallas, the other paper, they went home early because they thought the Olympics were basically over by then. So did I, for all purposes at that point. And yet, to your point, I wrote it to death that night, and then we all had to realize, wait a second, Sunday is the gold medal game because that felt like the gold medal game. So on Sunday, they had to beat Finland, which they did to cap it off. And it's, as you say, Michael Jordan's shot stood at 15 seconds left as the game winner. So are you, I'm going to ask you one more time. Are you ready to give it up now to me on national TV here on Undisputed that Michael Jordan is clearly the GOAT?
Let's do this. How can you say a guy is better at college if one guy doesn't even go to college? It's two separate things. College player and NBA player. We have to judge them on if both play. Skip, if you know what, you always try to do this. You can't say, now, had LeBron gone to college and his career was his college career was what it was. Okay, now we have a fair comparison. But how are you going to say a guy that didn't go to college had a worse college career than someone that did go to college? He didn't know. He didn't go to college. We don't know what he could have been. Who knows? He might have been Kareem. I'm thinking that he might have would be. No, he wouldn't. He'd have been one and done like Melo. Melo won the national championship and bounced. And that's what happened with LeBron. LeBron was going to play 1 year college ball. Like he said, if he had gone to college, he and his mom weren't going to be poor anymore. Somebody was going to have to pay for him to go to school for 1 year. And since nobody was going to do that, Skip, he said, I'm going to the NBA to get my money now.
Okay, so maybe LeBron avoided the possibility that he would have gone to, let's say, play for Coach K at Duke, and maybe he would have missed the tying shot at the buzzer. Oh, that's right, Ohio State. Let's say he goes to Ohio State and he misses the tying shot at the buzzer to win the national championship game. That would have hurt his resume even more. So maybe it was a good thing that he slid right on into pro basketball, where for the first couple of years, he didn't exactly take over the league. He was very good, but he wasn't dominating his first 2 years. Well, he wasn't.
Can I ask you a question? Skip? Did they allow high school players to go straight to the NBA? Because if I'm not mistaken, Moses Malone, who was a 3-time league MVP, went straight from high school to the NBA. If I'm not mistaken, Daryl Dawkins also did that. You know who else did that? I think, if I'm not mistaken, Bill Willoughby did it before the last gap, because there was a big gap between the last high school player going straight to the NBA and when Sean Kemp did it. I think Sean Kemp did it in 1990. If I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong. My year might be off a year or two, but I think there was a big gap, like a 14-year gap between the last guy going straight to the NBA from high school and then Sean Kemp doing it. So Michael Jordan really could have done that, right? If he's that guy. But what you telling me? That's what you're telling me, right? He that guy.
Oh, wait. Are you saying he's not that guy? Are you saying he was afraid of pro basketball?
See, there you go. You always try to twist my word. I'm saying if Michael Jordan was what you said, my guy, LeBron GOAT James, a.k.a. Wash King, a.k.a. I got 4 more years left. He did what he did. He went straight. He said, I'm taking my skills to the NBA. College can't hold me. I'm too good for college. Skip, think about this. Let that be a prodigy. I mean, he was Einstein. Einstein was too smart. He didn't have to go to school. That's who my guy is. My guy is Einstein of the NBA.
My guy loved his alma mater so deeply, so Carolina Bluely, that he said, I'm going to try to stay here and overcome Dean Smith and try to win them another national championship. And Dean Smith was just too good for Michael Jordan because, as you say, that's the only man who could ever contain him in college or pro basketball. And I admire him for staying for 3 years and at least trying. So, and I'm going to cap this off, Shannon, by saying that ESPN also has announced that their documentary on Michael Jordan called The Last Dance, they've now sped it up. They're going to air it now in April instead of June because obviously sports fans are stuck at home and want more sports content on television, and I can't wait to watch The Last Dance, right?
I'm ready to watch it also. I hope they don't have me in there when Michael's security team accosted me at the Nuggets game. I hope that's not in there.
Oh, I heard that is in there, but I could be wrong.
Better not be, Skip.
No mercy.
Let's take it up another level here on Undisputed. Yesterday on ESPN, Jason Light, the GM of the Buccaneers that you may not have known until somebody signed with the Buccaneers, Jason Light said that it almost felt like Tom Brady was recruiting the Bucs. The first time that they spoke, that was Jason Light and Bruce Arians, the coach, with Tom Brady. So, Mr. Sharpe, what do you make of that from Jason Light?
Skip, I'm not surprised because I think Tom Brady, and we talked about this a lot, if Tom Brady was going to leave, he was going to have to make a strictly football decision. He couldn't base it on, well, the glam, the limelight. It can't be, well, I need to be in New York or I need to be on the coast. He need to make it on a strictly football basis. And what gives me the best opportunity to showcase I can still play at a high level and possibly get to and compete for a Super Bowl? Skip, he looked at his Tampa. There's no question. Let ask you this, and when your opportunity. You and I both know, if Tampa had the same type of offensive roster as what he left in New England, he's not going there. He looked at it. Hold on. They got Mike Evans. They got Chris Godwin, Cameron Brake, O.J. Howard. Okay, they still got $20 million in cap space. Maybe they can go short, get an offensive lineman in the draft. Maybe they get one in free agency. Huh? It was a no-brainer. Skip, put it to you like this. We've seen actors that make $20 million, $15 million, what the going rate was for an A-list actor. But we see him take less than that for a film, and it's like, why would he do this film? He's like, this film has the potential to be special. Very, very special. So he was willing to waive his normal fee in order to do that. Give you an example, like Samuel Jackson. Samuel Jackson, we know he's box office. He's the highest grossing actor of all time, considering Star Wars. He's been in Iron Man, the Avengers series. But so Samuel Jackson is probably not having to interview for a movie role, Skip. Everybody knows who he is and what he is. But if Samuel Jackson wants a role that is not box office, he says, but I really want to do this. I want to test my chops because I believe I still got it. What director, what company gonna say, nah, Sam, we good? No. What do you expect Jason Light to say? Skip, I think the thing is what surprised Jason Light, even like most people. You heard what everybody said at the beginning because we thought we kept floating this out there. You and I both, I'm like, Skip, something brewing on the horizon over here. Oh, he's going back. Even all the fans. Oh, Tommy is going to come back. He's going to win it. He and Bill will work it out. He's coming back. Everybody around, he's going back to New England. Jason Light says he's going back to New England, or maybe he goes to San Francisco like a lot of people thought, or Vegas. But when Tom Brady sat down and he looked at it, Tampa as a franchise, boo. Tampa as an offensive juggernaut and what they potentially possess, yay. He's like, I can win an Oscar. I understand that I've been in big-time movie, $1 million budget films, but this little $5 million budget film can win me an Oscar. He realized this downtrodden franchise, 387 win percentage, the worst in North American sports, they can win me a Super Bowl. And that's what he factored in, and he should have.
Interesting. So I'm glad you went that direction because I anticipated maybe you would try to leap to the wrong conclusion that Tom Brady had only one hope to sign with. I thought you'd say he was desperate. He had to talk Tampa into taking him because you have made a strong case that Tom Brady fell off the cliff last year in New England and that his market was drying up around the rest of the league. So just in case you were going to go there, I was going to point out, and maybe it's for those fans who might have already leaped to that conclusion. Remember, Jeff Darlington on ESPN, who was the go-to source on this story as it unfolded, reported, 2.5, 3 weeks ago, that 8 teams he had talked to were interested in Tom Brady, and that 4 teams, and this is maybe 3 weeks ago, 4 teams said Jeff Darlington would sign him right now. So if there were 4 out there, and I don't know, he didn't say exactly which the 4 were, but I could start to guess who the 8 interested teams were because we're going to talk in just a few minutes here about the Chargers. You know, surely they would have been interested. We thought the Raiders were, the Dolphins. We could just keep going down the list. There felt like there were more than 8 teams. At one point, I thought there might be 13 teams that would have some interest in Tom Brady. But the reason I love this story, Shannon Sharpe, is that Tom Brady once again did it his way. He didn't wait for them to pursue him. He did his homework. Remember what he said in his opening, it was sort of the teleconference, press conference that he did a few days back on, from Tampa or with the Bucs. He said that what he loves to do is study and watch film. Well, I think he started already watching film. He broke down the possible destinations before the destinations came to him. So I believe in the case of Tampa Bay, he had already decided at the top of his list was the Bucs. So he basically said, well, I don't need them to come to me. I'm going to go tell them, hey, you're it. I actually want you. And you made all the points that I was going to make. They're beautiful. They're perfect for him because they have 4 weapons better than any one weapon he had last year in New England. And furthermore, and maybe more important, he has never played for what you would call great offensive-minded coaches. You know, Bill O'Brien, I don't know. Josh McDaniels is pretty good. I don't know if he's all-time
Charlie
great.
Weiss?
Pretty good. I mean, Charlie as a head coach wasn't very good, but I think he's a very good offensive mind, and I love Charlie. No disrespect to Charlie. I kind of miss having him on the show, actually. But the point is that has he ever played for a guru? Well, Bruce Arians is a guru, and the great Tom Moore, who's the advisor for this offense, who was the offensive coordinator for Peyton Manning, he's a guru. He's up there in that Bill Walsh echelon. So all of a sudden, Tom Brady's saying, wait a second, I can play for a Bruce Arians who coached Peyton and Roethlisberger and Luck and Carson Palmer. I can play for that guy. I can meld minds with him and Tom Moore with weapons. Wow. Why wouldn't I want to go there? Because as Tom said in the opening press conference, I'm going to have fun. We never heard him one time in 20 years say he was really having fun in New England. So I love the fact that he said, hey, Tampa, I want to do this right now. And I think they were dumbfounded because they hung up after one call, got their heads together and said, wait a second, is this for real? And they called him right back shortly thereafter and did the deal over the phone. And they were obviously a little surprised. He's just going to take $25 million. That's bargain basement for the GOAT. And he didn't ask for any total control of the offense because, again, he wants to get his head together with the great heads that are already there. So I think it's a beautiful story. And again, ESPN's story pointed out that it was dream job meets dream player because the Bucs had already done their film breakdown of 7 what they thought would be available quarterbacks. And they said they had far and away Brady ranked number 1. And yet they thought it was their, to quote ESPN, dream scenario. Because remember, Arians was asked at the combine, what one call would you take from another quarterback outside of Jameis Winston? And Arians just chuckled and said, Tom Brady? You know, like it was a dream to him. And all of a sudden their dream came true right before their eyes. And I think they couldn't see the forest for the trees because they're in the forest that Tom Brady wants to be in also. So I thought it was the all-time GOAT move by the GOAT to actually pick his team. And it happened to be the all-time losingest team that just happens to have next year's Super Bowl in its home stadium. Beautiful. So he fooled us all. Nobody saw this coming. I'll be the first to admit I laughed at it the first time I heard even any speculation. Tom Brady would go to the Buccaneers, known as the Succaneers? No way. Your thoughts?
Yeah. I'm confused here because I remember hearing Tom Brady's press conference and he says he's going to have fun. Now, when Lane Johnson at the Super Bowl mentioned about how miserable the Patriots players look and how, they won a lot and the yada, 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 Tom Brady stood his butt behind the podium and said, we're having fun, we're winning. Huh?
Yeah.
What transpired? So in other words, all this time, you've been lying. Because you see, Skip, you can win so much, but look, making money, you get a job you want to make, but Skip, if you don't enjoy it, if you're not having fun, it makes it very, very hard to get up day after day, week after week, year after year. If you really hate your job, if you find something you love, you'll never have to work a day in your life. So in other words, it got old. In other words, you weren't having as much fun as you led people to believe. Is that what he's saying, Skip Bayless? Or did it?
No.
Or did it just not become fun the last couple of years?
Obviously, I think you would agree with this. Nobody ever has fun playing for Bill Belichick. It's not fun because he's a tyrant. He's a dictator. He's a word I can't say here on television. But the goal is to win. And because they got to 9 Super Bowls in 20 years, which is just unfathomable to me, 9 in 20 years, almost half the years Tom was there, they went to the Super Bowl and they won 6 of them and should have won 2 more of them. So that was fun. The end result was fun, but the journey I don't think was fun for any of them because he's hard to play for. And he was lucky that he had Tom Brady as his locker room sort of mitigator, the guy who could buffer him versus the troops in the locker room who are saying, what is this guy doing? He's screaming at us. He's calling us out. He's chewing us out. And Brady was the one who always stepped up in the locker room and said, it's okay. It's just the way he is. We're going to go win us another Super Bowl. So again, that was fun. But now Tom's journey is going to be fun. His practices are going to be fun. His film study is going to be a lot more fun than it used to be because there's no Bill Belichick hanging over it, sourpussing the whole sort of environment that you have to practice and play in. So, yeah, I think he said, I'm going to go there for well, not only for 2 years, but you also see what Jason Light said, and I brought this up on the show yesterday. He concluded by saying, in fact, we feel like Tom could still play for over 2 years for us, and hopefully that's the case. Because Jason Light made the point that the tape showed us that he had plenty of arm. In fact, we thought he had the ideal arm for the Bruce Arians system. So they're saying no decline in his arm talent whatsoever, and they think he's fit enough and obviously brilliant enough that he's not just going to play for 2 more years, and they gave him 2 years guaranteed, $25 million. But Jason Light's saying hopefully maybe 3 years, maybe 4. Who knows? That would be your worst nightmare, Shannon Sharpe.
Skip, let me tell you something. Do you believe Brett Favre right now at the age of 50, I'm about to be 52, so Brett's about to turn 51. Do you believe Brett Favre can still go out there and throw the football 50 yards?
Probably.
Yes, exactly. It's not the arm talent. I believe Dan Marino can still go spin the ball. Elway can still spin the ball. Skip, there are other things. Legs play a huge part. If you believe Tom Brady's legs and his ability to drive the football with the consistency and the accuracy that we saw 10 years ago, you're fooling yourself. Now, Skip, if you want to buy a building bad enough, you want to buy a house, you want that location and you want that house bad enough, you might be willing to look where the lot is not ideal. Or maybe there's a small crack in the foundation, or maybe it's on a busy street. If you really want this location, you want this house. They really wanted Tom Brady, so they're willing to overlook some of the things that everybody else knows is there because they wanted that guy. And the guy that they had, they didn't want because they didn't feel they could win with him with his inability to protect the football. That's all I'm saying. Can he still spin the ball? Yes. But if you believe Tom Brady's legs are the same, if you believe Tom Brady still was willing to stand it up, he started flinching. He started to go down a lot easier than what we've seen in the past. And that's when we start to see the beginning of the end. It's here, Skip. I'm sorry you don't want to see it, but it's here.
I'm sorry you don't want to see what happened in New England last year when his receivers were dead last in the National Football League in what's called separation. So it's 1, 2, 3, ball's gone with Tom Brady, and he's going 1, 2, 3, nobody's open. I got to flinch a little bit here because I'm about to get drilled because I don't have my starting center, the anchor and quarterback of my line, David Andrews, who was gone for the whole year. He didn't have his left tackle for much of the year. The offensive line was just a shambles of sort of patchwork of this guy and that guy. They had one good lineman, Joe Tooney, who they recently tagged. But after that, it was just it was mediocrity at best across the offensive front protecting him. So he wasn't getting protected like usual. The running game fell all the way to the middle of the pack, which is not what Brady had experienced. And he had no receiver who could get open. Wouldn't you flinch occasionally in the pocket under those conditions? Because I know I would.
I know a guy that had a very similar situation. His name was Phillip Rivers. Russell Okung got injured. Maurice Pouncey got injured. His running game. Remember, Melvin Gordon held out, I think, for the first 4 weeks of the season. He was getting pummeled. Yeah. And nobody made no excuse about his offensive line. Nobody made excuses about his run game. You see what you just did for Tom Brady? You talked about his offensive line. You talked about the run game. But I don't remember you saying that when that run game ran them to a Super Bowl in the playoffs. I don't remember you mentioning anything about Sonny Michel and Ruggs Head. All you talked about was 3 third and 10s that Tom Brady picked up in Kansas City and how he went bing, bing, bing against the Chargers.
He did. And speaking of those Chargers, they missed the playoffs with Phillip Rivers last year. So Tom Brady, I believe, had even less help than Phillip Rivers did, but Phillip Rivers missed the playoffs. Tom Brady pulled off yet another fourth quarter comeback, come from behind drive against the Dolphins' final regular season game to put them in the 2 seed, in the catbird seat. And Belichick's defense spit it up once again, as it did the last 8 games down the stretch, and blew the 2 seed. So Brady put his team in position to have the 2 seed. Phillip Rivers, with even more talent than Brady had, missed the playoffs. Okay, well, I say good luck to the Indianapolis Colts, because the Colts should have gone after Tom Brady, and I'm pretty sure they probably did.
Skip, the difference is that you look at the Patriots defense and what they gave up, points, yards, and you look at the Chargers defense, what they gave up. We didn't expect the Chargers defense when you got Bosa and you got Ingram and you got the guy from Vanderbilt. What's the guy's name? The DB, Skip. You expect them to be better than what they showed. Casey, yes, what they showed last year, Skip. I'm like, I hardly recognize these guys. But when you got the number 1 scoring defense, because remember, Skip Bayless, you won 3 games in which you scored 17 points. You lost 5 games in which your defense gave up more than 17 because your guy couldn't get you more than that. So stop this notion, Skip Bayless. Stop making excuses for your guy. He's in an ideal situation. So when they lose a game, I don't want to hear nothing about no defense. I don't want to hear nothing about no offensive line. I don't want to hear nothing. Because I know you got your excuses coming.
Quick interjection here. Please don't ever again on this show disrespect a player from Vanderbilt University, which is actually, Harvard is actually the Vanderbilt of the North. And we are also a pipeline to the National Football League and to Major League Baseball. So don't ever act like you can't remember a Vanderbilt player's name on this show. It will never be allowed again. You will be fined and you will be suspended if you ever do this again. His name is Casey Hayward. And don't you ever forget it. And you need to say it loudly and you need to say it proudly, because it is Vanderbilt University, my alma mater. Okay. We are first in academics and first in athletics. Thank you.
No, you're not. First of all, okay, Skip, how about this here? Casey Hayward, that went to the Vanderbilt, that was matriculated at the Vanderbilt University, the Commodores, did not play up to his All-Pro Pro Bowl status from years past. Joey Bosa and Melvin Ingram did not play to the level that we're capable of, that we know they can play at. Okay.
All right, I will give you that. And one other quick aside from me, just a quick personal anecdote, if you will. Speaking of Jason Light, I barely knew who Jason Light was until I saw him on camera on a clip from ESPN from yesterday. I could not have picked him out of a lineup. He's now become a national name only because Tom Brady said, "I want you." And the only thing I knew about Jason Light, Shannon Sharpe, was that back in 2017, as we headed toward that football season, remember, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were featured on Hard Knocks. And there was a clip that I saw. I guess I was watching the show live when I saw it, but Jason Light was talking about cut day, and he said, and I'm going to have to paraphrase this because I barely remember it, but he said, the only thing worse than cut day would be having to drive in a beat-up car with Skip Bayless all the way cross country with no heater, no air conditioning, and the windshield wipers down to the metal and stuck on where they were scraping back and forth.
Yeah,
and
see?
That was the first I'd ever heard of Jason Light, and I appreciated that. But when I saw it, I figured the only person who really knows about that, who could really relate to that, would be my man Shannon Sharpe, who gets stuck in a car with me every day, driving all the way across America on national TV with no heating, no air conditioning, and the wipers stuck down to the metal back and forth like this, right? So you know how that feels.
I do. When are we getting to that destination? I've been doing this for almost 4 years now, and I don't know. It seems like Groundhog's Day because we keep doing this over and over again, and we haven't arrived at a destination.
It is. It's an endless Twilight Zone episode in which you're stuck in the car with me, and it's never going. This journey will never end. And you should be grateful for this journey because you get to ride shotgun with a guy from Vanderbilt University.
I'm driving.
Thank you very much.
I'm driving. I'm not. Skip,
no.
Do you actually think I'm going to let you drive? You're not driving.
No mercy.
The number one rule to me in stopping this virus, even beyond wash your hands, is don't touch your face. I'll repeat it. Don't touch your face. Now back to sports, back to our next topic, Cam Newton. We know he's out there because he posts on social media almost on a daily basis. We know he's free and he is hungry. We know that Fox Bet says that the number one destination, the favored destination for Cam Newton is the Los Angeles Chargers. So, Shannon Sharpe, I ask you, why haven't the Chargers signed Cam Newton?
I don't know, Skip. I know his doctors, I think it was Monday, maybe a week ago, Skip, when they said that he was clear, but a team doctor, and they're going to have an independent doctor that's going to have to clear Cam of his foot. He had that surgery on his, I think, Liz Frank, and he had a shoulder surgery. So it's going to be team doctors and independent doctors that clears Cam, not just his doctor. Skip, I do believe it's the best fit because if you look at what when Cam was able to win the MVP, he had a tight end, Greg Olsen. Hunter Henry is there. They franchised him. He has two weapons. He has Keenan Allen. He has Mike Williams. And that's what he had a very similar situation when he was in Carolina when they went 15-1 and went to the Super Bowl. So, Skip, I believe at this juncture, Cam needs some help. The days he's taken so much punishment where he was a one-man team, he was a one-man wrecking crew. I don't believe Cam now can do that with any consistency. There are times, Skip, he just basically just willed his team to win. Now he needs some help. We saw what Skip, if Tom Brady could recognize that I need help, and he went to Tampa and he got a boatload of help, I think Cam should be at that point of his career where he realizes I'm not the same Cam Newton. Some of the things I can do, some of the things I can't do when I was younger. Let me go to a situation now, obviously, I'm sure Cam, if they offered him a job, Cam would sign up. But I don't know what the holdup is. Maybe they're going to go into the draft. Maybe they seem to be content with Tyrod Taylor, Skip. And I know a lot of people are Tyrod and Cam, stop it. Tyrod Taylor and Cam Newton are not the same. No disrespect to Tyrod. He's carved out a great niche. He was a backup in Baltimore, got an opportunity in Buffalo, led him to the playoffs. And when given an opportunity, he's played well. But Cam has been an MVP. Cam was Rookie of the Year. Cam's been to the Pro Bowl. That's value in there. There's a value to that. And granted, I believe the biggest reason that Cam numbers and has tailed off is that he's been hurt. And Skip, sometimes you don't think about it. Man, my team, they're counting on me. I got the C on my jersey. Man, I need to fall on the sword for my team. Yeah, and you do that too many times, and when you get beat up, guess what happens, Skip? They move on. And I believe that's what the Carolina Panthers have done. But I believe this is a great fit for Cam, the Chargers and Cam.
So do I. In fact, I still can't believe Tom Brady didn't choose the Los Angeles Chargers. As we talked about many times, they're moving into, out here in LA, new SoFi Stadium. And I thought it was the perfect marriage of the GOAT and an up-and-coming team on the verge moving into a billions of dollars stadium here in Los Angeles, where Tom Brady and Giselle have had a home in the past. And yet
Correct.
I was told and I read that Tom Brady wanted to be a little closer to his family based in New York now, where he could fly a little quicker from Tampa to New York than from Los Angeles all the way cross country to New York. Maybe he just thought the Tampa situation was better because of Bruce Arians and Tom Moore as the offensive gurus. I don't know for sure. But this situation here with the Chargers is spectacular because, Shannon, I don't think I need to remind you, they just signed in free agency Trey Turner and Brian Bulaga to shore up that offensive front that couldn't protect Phillip Rivers. Now it looks like it's pretty stout. And they added Linval Joseph to the defense and Chris Harris Jr., who you know from Denver very well, on defense. And it was already pretty to very good. Wow. This is made to order. This is a team on the verge. I'm with you. I like Tyrod. I respect Tyrod. He's a fine man and a fine leader of a football team. But he's not Cam. At least he's not the Cam we used to know and love before Cam got all beat to hell. So to your point, your first point, I don't know how beat up he is. Is it to the point where no team doctor would clear him the way an independent doctor did, as he said in Atlanta a week or so ago? I don't know, because we'd have to get down to, and remember, Cam's a little hamstrung right now because of social distancing and the shelter orders we're under. It's hard to meet with the teams face to face and get the doctor to hands-on, examine you, to put you through a real thorough physical. So, to me, it looks like to me that the Chargers are saying we're just not interested. And they're sending a resounding message that is echoing around the league because it looks like the Chargers are saying, hey, we've got the 6th overall pick. Now I see in their latest mock drafts, Mel Kiper has Justin Herbert going to the Chargers at number 6. Then I think Todd McShay just came out, maybe it was last night or this morning, with his latest mock draft. He's still got Jordan Love going 6th overall to the Chargers. So it looks like the Chargers' MO, their game plan is, let's just keep Tyrod as our bridge quarterback, as our mentor to whichever young quarterback we take. And maybe Tyrod will play next year, or maybe only play half of next year, depending on how quickly the kid advances. And it looks like they want to go forward into the future in SoFi Stadium with Jordan Love or Justin Herbert as their long-term solution at quarterback. Now again, if you could tell me that Cam is healthy, he's better than Tyrod. To me, he's way better than Justin Herbert. And again, I keep saying I didn't watch enough of Jordan Love, but it sounds like he's a project. So it sounds to me like Cam would be, if he's healthy, he would be a better solution for, let's at least say 2 years, the first 2 big years in SoFi, when you need marquee, you need box office, you need somebody to sell your football team and sell those seat licenses, those season ticket seat licenses in the new stadium. I'd want Cam, but apparently the Chargers are saying, nope, we're good with Tyrod. And to your point, Tyrod made the playoffs as a Buffalo Bill, lost a game at Jacksonville, playoff game, what was it, 9-6? Ugh, but whatever. I'm with you. I thought Brady would choose them, and I'm surprised they haven't chosen Cam because they need him to sell. And yet, Shannon, my last point is, and I'm going to hand the ball back to you, you can't sign Cam as a backup quarterback. You can't keep him as a plan B because he's too big. His aura is too big. He's too big on social media. He's an MVP. His personality is too big. He's not a clipboard holder. You can't do that. So all the ideas of, well, he could be a backup wherever X, Y, and Z. No, he can't. It's starter or bust, or don't sign him, to me. Your thoughts?
Right. Skip, I'm looking at it like this here, Skip. The value in the 6th pick is they don't know what we're going to do. There's speculation. Mike Mayock, Todd McShay, and Mel Kiper. Okay, they're saying they're going quarterback. But here's the thing, Skip. If I sign Cam, what's the likelihood I'm going to take a quarterback? So now I've lost all value in that pick. See, I still got value because you don't know. Somebody might trade up and says, well, you know what?
Maybe.
Oh, we might. So what's the rush on Cam? Don't see no one else seen. Now, there's always a risk. Skip, we wait, and then somebody, he's able to, go to an independent doctor and they look over the x-rays and they like what they see and they sign him. But right now, I'm in no rush because I do have the 6th pick. And someone might be willing to offer me something of value. I might be able to slide back and get a later pick in the 1st round and maybe get a pick in the 2nd round or the 3rd round. Because here's the see, Skip, when I look at it like this, and I know Anthony Lynn very well, played football with him, won Super Bowls with him. I don't know if he has the luxury of trying to develop a guy. Skip, you got to win here. LA, more than any other place in the world, you got to win or you got to go. It's simple. There's too much going on for you not to win. That's what happened with the Clippers. The Clippers was so bad, that's why Lakers always sell out when they go play the Clippers. Those are Laker fans. Skip, you got to win here. Why would I go sit in a stadium and when the weather is 80 degrees, I go to Venice, I go to Malibu, I go to Santa Monica, I can eat on somebody's deck, and you want me to go watch a losing team? No, I'm not doing that. So, Skip, Lynn is kind of under the gun. He's got to win this year because I don't know if he'll get another year.
He does.
As opposed because what happened last year. So for me, Cam is a great option, but I think they're holding off because they want to have somebody come up and maybe swap that pick and move back, and we get Cam and we get more picks.
Maybe. Okay, I'm going to button this up by reminding everybody that it may have been because of injuries, but since that MVP year for Cam in 2015, when he was spectacular, 35 touchdowns to 10 interceptions. Over the next 4 years, he threw 43 interceptions, which was tied for first in the whole NFL. And over those 4 years, his QBR, you know how much I love QBR, it fell all the way to 31st of the 40 qualified quarterbacks. So he's had 4 combined miserable years, but to Shannon's point, maybe he was just beat up. Maybe he, quote unquote, died for the cause in Carolina. Maybe he wasn't protected. Maybe he didn't have the weapons. Maybe he didn't click with the coaching staff. Maybe it was just all wrong and he needs a fresh start with a little healthier body elsewhere, which is why I'm with Shannon that the Chargers are going to have to take a serious look here. No mercy. Let's heat it up even more here on Undisputed. Larry Bird is now in the finals of the fan poll on ESPN to choose the greatest college basketball player ever. And remember, Magic Johnson made it to the final 4 of that fan poll. So this got us thinking about the most watched basketball game ever. And that was obviously the 1979 NCAA championship game in Salt Lake City. I was there. I covered that game that night. Magic versus Bird. That was the game that everybody said put college basketball and certainly the Final Four on the national map. So, Shannon Sharpe, I ask you, why was that game the highest rated game ever in the history of basketball?
Skip, I believe there were 2 elements at play here. You remember, Skip, back then, there was not Amazon, there was not Hulu, there was not a whole lot to watch. You had ABC, you had CBS, and you had NBC. That was it. So all these other channels, there was no social media. There was not a whole lot for you to do. But also, Skip, remember, in the 70s, there was still this element of a racial. You had, as you mentioned, the Great White Hope against Magic Johnson. Now, Skip, a whole lot of people didn't know about Larry Bird because back then, it's not like it is now. You live in Georgia, you can see UCLA, you can see all these other games. But back then, games were regional. you only got a chance to see Larry Bird once they got to what we know now is March Madness. So there's not a whole lot of people that knew about Larry Bird or Magic Johnson. But when we finally get here, Skip, I remember asking myself, I'm like, how did he get the name Magic? I know his mom ain't named him. I'm asking myself, why his name Magic? I didn't know because he could do things with the basketball people hadn't seen before. It seemed like he was a magician. That's how he got the name. So I'm like, okay. And I'm looking at Bird and Magic. And as you mentioned, Skip, it's always been that. From when Jack Johnson was the heavyweight title champ and he's fighting these, as we call them, great white hope, you had these sides pitted. Whether it be Joe Louis and fighting, I think it was Max Smelling back then. So you've always had one side or the other, and you had right on the edge of your seat. Skip, I don't think watching that game, and I remember watching it from start to finish, did I ever think this game would do this or it would mean this. I didn't, Skip. I did not. The first national championship game I can remember watching was 77, was Marquette and UNC. But I'm like, okay, Final Four, okay. Bird and Magic. Now, I don't remember, Skip, it being billed like this because it was Bird, Magic. I remember when Kentucky beat Duke the year before. Kyle Macy, Jack Gibbons, I think Rick Roby was on that roster, Skip. They didn't talk about it like this. The guys that were in that game, they didn't talk like they talked about Bird Magic. And I'm not mistaken, Skip, wasn't that game on NBC? I could be wrong, but I think it was NBC. It might have been CBS. But Skip, I don't remember the previous games or even the games right after that being talked about like this game. And it wasn't until maybe 10, 15 years later that I realized that I had actually watched something special. But when you got, Skip, we've never seen anything like this. We've never seen a white ball player that's been like Larry Bird. We never. And I don't know if we'll ever see it again. Forget, foreign born or American born. We've never seen anything close to American born. We compare them to say Luka has some Bird in him. He might be the closest thing. But we haven't seen an American born white player even come close to Larry. And so, Skip, I think that there's the racial element, and I think the mere fact, Skip, there was not a whole lot going on. So what else were you going to watch? And you remember, Skip, when you got shows back then that were good, I remember MASH, and I remember Dallas and Dynasty. And Skip, those shows ran for 10, 15 years, and they would pull 10, 15, 20 million fans a week. Because that was it. What else you were going to
do? Yeah, good point. Okay. I start with the final irony to this whole discussion, which was, again, I was there that night in Shannon. The game was a dud. The game was basically a mismatch and was never close. So the final score was 75-64, but the halftime score was 37-28, a 9-point game. And it never felt like it was any closer than a 9 or a 10-point game. And Bird ran out of gas. He was playing, he was playing every game, every night. And he did okay at 19 and 13, but shot only 7 of 21 from the floor. Magic was very good. He was 24-7 and 5 assists. But Gregory Kelser, who was going to be a pretty good NBA player himself, he kind of stole the show with 19, 8, and 9. Nobody remembers that. But the only thing anybody remembers is the buildup and the crescendo that was this game. And I'll be the first to tell you, I have a hard time of saying this put college basketball on my map because it did not. Shannon, I was a huge college basketball fan already. Mm-hmm. I was a Pistol Pete Maravich fan. I had the honor and the privilege of seeing Pistol Pete play twice, once at Vanderbilt and once in Oklahoma City at what was called the all-college tournament was played at Christmas time. So to me, college basketball was a huge thing already. And then I was having a hard time becoming a Larry Bird fan because I don't know if you remember this, Shannon, but in the game that started to put him on the map, which was the regional final against Eddie Sutton's Arkansas team featuring Sidney Moncrief and Scott Hastings, at the end of the game, a bunch of Indiana State fans rushed the floor. They were the Sycamores. And Larry Bird turned and actually punched one of his own fans, decked the kid as he ran toward him. He fired on him. And I'm like, who is this guy? And then that guy on the Sunday in between the games, which were obviously played semifinals on Saturday, then the finals on Monday night in Salt Lake City, Larry Bird won National Play of the Year and stiffed everybody who went to the big breakfast for the John Wooden Award. So he didn't show up for that. And I'm thinking, who does this guy think he is? Well, he's Larry Bird. And in those days, Shannon, Gil Brandt, who was the draft master and sort of architect of the Dallas Cowboys, always had a hospitality suite at the Final Four, which is obviously football to basketball. But Gil Brandt always prided himself on, I'm going to find that one kid who could play tight end, some college basketball player who could play tight end for me for the Dallas Cowboys. So all the great college basketball coaches would come by Gil's hospitality suite because it's free drink and free food. And Gil told me that he'd talked to all the highest level coaches, and none of them were big fans of Larry Bird. He told me that on Sunday. Gil said a lot of them think he's too slow-footed to play in the NBA. And I'm like, okay, all right. And so I'm thinking maybe he is too slow-footed to play in the NBA. Well, the nation didn't think that, because the nation was already saying, wait a second, here's a great, and I'm talking about white America, obviously. Here's a great white hope who isn't a hopeless underdog. They could already see that he's 6'9", he's legit. He can maybe hang with Magic Johnson. So here you had what you pointed out, the greatest nickname in the history of sports is Magic. There's nothing like that nickname. It gives me chills even to speak it out here in my little house here on the west side of LA, because he was going to be Showtime, but he was already Magic in college at Michigan State. And now he's up against a great white hope who wasn't great white hype. There's no hype to Larry Bird. He's going to be really good, we thought, even in this game. Yeah. So to me, remember, I had kind of, as a white guy, I'd pretty much conceded at that point that the NBA, which I also loved, was mostly a black man's game. It just was, because the black players were just better than the white players. So I couldn't even fathom how a white guy was going to be an MVP in the NBA. I didn't see that coming, but it looked like maybe America kind of hoped that was coming. So at least white America, and this is not racist, this is just a racial view, that white America said, hey, maybe we have a guy now. Well, they did have a guy who became on to become the guy in Boston and often in the NBA. Go on.
Right. He was, Skip, and the thing was, Skip, is that you remember back then, Red Auerbach saw something, because back then you could draft a player. Said player could go back to college, and you would still own his rights. So imagine if you could draft. LeBron had gone to, because he drafted him as a junior. Yeah. Bird went back to college, and he still possessed his rights. But Skip, in order for Magic and Bird to do what they did, Magic had to come out. Magic could not have gone back to school, have Bird leave, and then come. It had to. They had to be joined at the hip. Because that's the only, Skip, I don't remember, now maybe you can remember, is that they built this Bird Magic. It wasn't about the teams. It wasn't Michigan State, Indiana State. It was Bird versus Magic. I don't know if we've seen that since. And so they were joined at the hip, because when Magic won his first title, it was tape delayed. They were not, you didn't see the finals live. You saw it on tape delay. They changed that. But think about this, Skip. It had to be they had to go to the Celtics and the Lakers, because the Celtics and Lakers had battled all through the 60s and a few times in the 70s. So now, in order for us to pick this rivalry back up, they had to go opposite. And now, guess what we got? It had to be that, Skip. There's no other way for them to be tied like they were, to play this game. Bird, because Magic was only a sophomore. He could have come back to school, but he left. He goes number 1 overall. The Celtics had already drafted Larry Bird the year before, owned his rights. Oh, my goodness. And Skip, what it did, though, it changed March Madness. The way we look at it now, Skip, it wasn't like that before now.
Yeah. Well, we'd never seen an underdog. You know, we've seen, obviously, Valpo and Butler and Florida Gulf Coast, but they never had Larry Bird. You know, they didn't have that guy where the 33-0 Sycamores made it to the championship game, but they had that guy. And everybody could at least see that guy was a real guy. He was not just a hopeless underdog. He had a shot. And then I just happened, because I'm watching a lot of classic TV. I don't know if you've seen even recently the Magic Bird documentary. I forget where I saw it. It may have been on ESPN, but I can't remember the other day. And it was Cedric Cornbread Maxwell talking about Bird's the first practice when he was a rookie. And Cedric, and I'm paraphrasing, but he was saying, you know, I just didn't think a white guy could play basketball. And it only took one practice for Cedric to say, wait a second, this white boy can flat play basketball. And the amazing part of this story to me, back to you, Shannon Sharpe, is when you were a kid, Larry Bird became your favorite player. That's shocking to me, right? I don't know, right? I don't know how old you were when he became your favorite, but he was.
In high school. Skip, I was in high school, and even when I went to college, I had Bird shoes, I had Bird t-shirts, I had Bird posters on my wall. And guys were looking at me like, man, dude, you from rural South Georgia, and you like, Skip, no one in high school, they couldn't believe, like, man, why you like Bird? Why you want Bird to be the... Skip, I knew he was, I mean, watching him, I'm like, okay, he's good. But Skip, when you start watching Skip, if you remember, he beat Magic for Rookie of the Year. The vote total was, if I'm not mistaken, like 63-3. That's how dominating he was. Bird finished 4th in the MVP voting as a rookie. Let that sink in, Skip. The likelihood of we having a rookie in today's game finished that high. Now, Wes Unseld actually won the award, if I'm not mistaken, as a rookie. But Bird finished 4th behind Kareem. That was, let this sink in, Skip. In 1980, that was the last year that the players voted for the MVP. The players voted Larry Bird 4th in the MVP voting. Skip, it was just something about him. I'm just watching him. And Skip, like you said, he was slow of foot. Larry Bird probably couldn't outrun the officials that was calling his game. But boy, he could get to them spot and bust them up.
Okay, so I want to point out to our faithful viewers who know my man Shannon Sharpe. Shannon Sharpe is a proud black man who's been so hugely, greatly outspoken on this show on black social justice causes. And yet, this guy, the great white hope, comes along who's not white hype, and Shannon Sharpe in high school says, that guy can play. I don't care what color he is. He can just flat out play. So that's why this means even more to me, knowing you the way I've gotten to know you.
But Skip, I make no bones about it. I wanted Magic Johnson to whip his ass in that final, though. Don't win that game. He became my favorite player after that game. But no, you're not beating Magic. Don't beat Magic on this one, because I couldn't go back. Skip, I couldn't go back to school because they're gonna be bragging.
I got it. So here came Larry Bird, like Magic, 6 feet 9 inches tall, no jumper, no leaper, but he could shoot that jumper from behind his head, and he was deadly from anywhere with that jump shot. And he didn't have speed, but he did have quickness of foot, and he could get a step on you because he was slick with that first step and any spin move. He was ambidextrous. He wasn't a good passer. He was a great passer. He didn't feature the pass quite the way Magic did, but then he had such a big body that he was a below-the-rim rebounder who could get you 10 boards a game. And the full package of it, he was a bad boy, man. He would just, because he was a deadly clutch shooter. So you had the whole package in Larry Bird, and you had the storybook story of Larry goes to Boston, Magic goes to Showtime, and they're going head to head through the 80s. And it couldn't get any better than that, because not only did they put college basketball on the map, but they put the NBA on the map, that rivalry that became ultimately a friendship, right?
Yes.
What a
Skip,
story.
Larry
what
Bird,
a night. Yep.
You mentioned, Skip, that he was above the rim, but Larry Bird was a career 24, 10, and 6. Let that sink in for just a second. He averaged 24 points, 10 rebounds, 6 assists. Skip, his greatest game goes unnoticed. Larry Bird was 1 steal away from a quadruple double with 33 minutes, but they were blowing him out and he didn't get it. Now, in hindsight, he probably looks back and says, because that's the hardest thing to accomplish in the NBA. I'm talking about the quadruple double, Skip, in a good way. We've seen guys get quadruple doubles in the bad way where they have 10 turnovers. But he had 9 steals in 33 minutes. And he probably like, you know what? Because back then, Skip, guys didn't look at numbers like they do now. No. If a guy is 1 rebound or 1 steal, 1 assist away from a triple-double, he's probably going to go in the game and get that. If he's 1 rebound, assist, or steal away from a quadruple-double, he might finish out the game trying to get that because it's such a rarity.
You got it. Right. Maybe he was too slow-footed to D you up on the perimeter and lock you down, but he could roam on defense and he could disrupt. Yes. And he could get his hands on lots of balls and steal a lot of passes. And in the end, Larry Bird was something, and we'll see now head-to-head with Michael Jordan and this ESPN fan vote poll. I don't think he has a chance in that, but we'll see. No mercy. I sure hope you enjoyed that last topic as much as I did. But now, back to the National Football League. Bill Belichick has been shockingly quiet during the free agency period. Meanwhile, losing 10 starters, including this guy, what was that guy's name, number 12? I think it was Brady. 10 starters has Belichick lost. So, Shannon Sharpe, from what you see from Bill Belichick right here, right now, what is New England's record going to be next year?
Well, Skip, you said he lost 10 starters. It's hard to lose something that you set aside the curb. I didn't lose that. I didn't want it. I wish I could give it to you in a better scenario, but you know what that means, Skip Bayless. When has Coach Belichick lost something that he wanted? But I trust Coach Belichick. I have the utmost faith in him. They still possess the number 1 defense. Now, I believe there's a good chance he probably will become more involved on the defensive side of the football. You know, Skip, it looked like his son, I think his name is Steve, and Jared Mayo split the duties, but it seemed like his son was calling the defensive plays last year.
Yes.
Maybe Coach Belichick goes back, have a more hands-on situation with that unit, even though it was really good last year and spurts, it was great. But a part of me wants to say 9-7, but it's hard for me to believe Coach Belichick doesn't win double-digit games. Just him alone with no talent, I believe at this juncture of his career and how great he is and what he can get guys to do to believe in him, I believe they'll be 10-6. 10-6. Skip, look, until I think the number one thing that what scares me about Buffalo, what scares me about Miami is, Skip, we have expectations of those teams now. We saw what Miami was able to do down the stretch. You mentioned they beat Philly, they beat the Patriots. We see what Buffalo was able to do. So with the expectations, they trade for Stephon Diggs, the Bills did. The Jets hadn't made enough moves, Skip. Now maybe they got something coming down the pipeline via the draft, but I just can't say with any degree of certainty that Miami is going to be really, really good. They're going to build on what they did last year. Buffalo will build on what they did last year. I trust Coach Belichick. I'm going to say they'll be 10-6.
Well, Fox Bet says that the over-under on Patriot wins is 9.5, so you're going to 10-6. I want it in concrete right here, right now. I want it in stone. Shannon Sharpe, the Hall of Famer here on Undisputed, says Bill Belichick's team without Tom Brady will go, I'm writing this down, 10-6. How many cases of Diet Dew do you want on 10-6? Would you like 2 cases, 3 cases? You name the cases. 3. I will take that bet right now. 3. Okay, 3
we'll do
cases.
3. We'll do 3.
Hall of Famer. Okay, Hall of Famer. 3 cases of Diet Dew on Patriots going 10-6.
I got a bet for you. I got a bet for you. How about we do this one? The Patriots will have a better record than the Bucs. Let's do that one. Let's do that one.
Done.
Mr. 12-4.
Okay, you want Okay, I'm Mr. 12-4. I'll do that because I cannot see Belichick's team right here, right now, being better than 8-8. I'm being nice to the GOAT coach to say 8-8 because I can't see where they're headed. So, okay, do you want those three cases on Tampa versus, Brady versus Belichick and wins then?
I want 3-3. I want three cases they're going to win at least 10 games.
Okay,
I want
good.
three cases they're going to have a better record than the Bucks.
Done and done. Thank you very much. Now, let's see what Bill Belichick has done so far in free agency, or again, what he has not done. He has signed the immortal Bo Allen, who used to play for the Bucks, a defensive tackle. Adrian Phillips was out last year, but he's a very good special teams player. I'll give you that one. Not bad. Damiere Byrd wasn't bad for Kyler Murray last year, but started, maybe 3 games for Arizona. Not bad. Then the immortal Brandon Copeland was signed, another defensive tackle. And, of course, Brian Hoyer, as soon as the Colts cut him, he is now on his 10th stop in the National Football League and has gone back to New England once again, as we think the backup quarterback, because by all accounts, Bill Belichick wants to go forward with Jarrett Stidham. I've already told you I'm not the biggest fan. I don't think he's bad, and I don't think he's a bust, but I think he's going to have a really difficult time filling those winged cleats once worn by number 12 for 20 years in Foxborough. So if Jarrett Stidham starts next year, you will be lucky to get to 8-8 because it could be one of those. In fact, you brought it up. It could be a bridge year. It could be a rebuilding year, except I'm not going to let the GOAT coach off the hook by giving him a pass for next year. If he's that good, if he ran Tom Brady out the back door, then he should have a plan A, not a plan B or C, a plan A to get out of this because, Shannon, I'm going to quickly run through all the players that he lost, starting with Tom Brady and then going to Philip Dorsett. These are all starters from last year. Philip Dorsett, Ben Watson, who was 39 years of age, he just retired. Ted Karras was the starting center last year. Danny Shelton, defensive tackle. Landon Roberts, who's a very good linebacker. Jamie Collins, who had a really good year last year. Kyle Van Noy had even a better year last year. Duron Harmon, he traded to Detroit, and then he cut his longtime, very good kicker, Stephen Gostkowski. So Belichick does have the 23rd overall pick, and Mel Kiper has him penciled in right now, taking Jordan Love out of Utah, the quarterback. But Todd McShay says Jordan Love's going to go to the Chargers at number 6. So I don't know. Somebody's going to be really wrong on that one. But maybe if Belichick gets Jordan Love, I can't see Jordan Love starting next year. So I think, 8-8 still looking like the right pick there. And you're looking really bad at 10-6. I'll give you this. Belichick has a bunch more draft picks. He's got 3 picks in the 3rd round. Remember, he gave up the 2 for Mohamed Sanu. That was a sweet move because that was a bust. So Belichick's got 3 picks in the 3rd. He's got a 4th. He's got a 5th. He's got 4 picks in the 6th round. Is that going to put you over the top? He's even got 2 7th-round picks. He's bottom heavy with draft picks. I'm just not sure how you parlay that into instant success next year. I could be wrong. I know he's very good, but go ahead.
You remember, Skip, when Jamie Collins left in Cleveland. How did Jamie Collins do in Cleveland? He did good with Bill, Coach Belichick, and the Patriots only. Kyle Van Noy, how did he do at his previous location? Kyle Van Noy became a name in New England. So
he did.
You need to, Coach Belichick has a way of taking guys that at their first stop, they didn't enjoy the level of success that maybe the team thought they would. Mm-hmm. And he says, you know what?
Yep.
It wasn't that guy. It was that you didn't know how to use the guy. Mm-hmm. See, Skip, if I buy a forklift, I should own a warehouse to lift pallets. But if I buy a forklift to be in a parade, I'm not getting the use of them. See, they don't know how to use them. Coach Belichick gonna know how to use them. And them 4 6-round picks, 1 or 2 of them might turn into be a Brady. But Andy Dalton is still in play, Skip Bayless. Andy Dalton is still in play.
Okay, he might be. I'll give that would maybe change it. You might have a shot with Andy Dalton. I'm not seeing that yet. I'm also going to remind you, Buffalo did make the playoffs. You point out Diggs is now a Bill. And the Dolphins next year have a record, they have the most picks in the whole National Football League. They have 14 draft picks, including 3 in the first round. I'm going to make the case that Buffalo will be better than New England next year, and I think the Dolphins will get better than New England will be next year. I don't know if they're going to get Tua with the 5th overall. I don't know if they're going to trade up for Tua. I don't know if they're going to go with Ryan Fitzpatrick for the whole year, but I think they're going to be a big threat to Belichick at least next year. So Shannon Sharpe, the Hall of Famer, is dug in at 10-6. I say, here's stuck in my hovel here in West LA, I'm going 8-8. That's enough for that one, because next up, we got to return to the National Basketball Association. No mercy. On an IG live chat, Giannis was asked which player he thinks in the NBA is hardest to guard. Giannis took a long time to think about it, then finally said very quickly and almost quietly, James Harden, without any explanation. And obviously, Giannis has taken 2 recent shots at James Harden, the first time taking, as you remember, Kemba Walker over James Harden in the All-Star draft, and then saying, I want somebody that's going to pass the basketball. And then he said after that All-Star game that his team, Giannis's team, was looking to pass the ball to whichever player James Harden was guarding. So, Shannon Sharpe, how do you explain that Giannis suddenly picked James as hardest to guard?
Well, you're trying to play nice now. You're trying to backtrack a little bit, but you said what you said. Skip, I'm surprised he didn't say, well, James Harden is the toughest to guard because he doesn't play defense or pass the ball, so he has all the energy for offense. But I noticed how he didn't backtrack, Skip, when he said James Harden doesn't pass the ball. He didn't backtrack when he said, yeah, we were trying to pass the ball to whomever James Harden was guarding. He didn't say anything about that. He might be trying to say the beef is over with what he said, but not for James Harden. Skip, these are very, very prideful men, and they pride in, yes, and some players are better on one end than the other. But when you take a swipe at him, basically you're saying, you are all offense. You can't do anything else. How do you think that man is going to respond? He made it abundantly clear. He's like, okay, I didn't see what was there to laugh at? Kemba, me? I'm an MVP. Been in the top 2, 3 voting MVP the last 3 or 4 years. And you tell me, oh, it was a tough decision taking Kemba over me? James made it abundantly clear. He didn't see what the joke, he didn't see the humor in that statement that Giannis had made.
Okay, so remember, James did finally, via Rachel Nichols, fire back at Giannis because he said, I wish I could be 7 feet tall and just dunk. That takes no skill at all. And it seems like once James fired back at Giannis, that Giannis sort of folded his tent and went home. And when I watched this, the clip of this IG Live, and he finally said, James Harden is the hardest to guard, it felt like he was wimping out. It felt like he was backing off. It felt like he was backing down. And this is what I don't like about Giannis. Now, Shannon, allow me to add some context and perspective here. I do have some sympathy for players who grow up in other countries, this case Greece, and then come to our country to play professional basketball because maybe they never feel quite comfortable with the media. Not that Giannis doesn't speak very good English, because he does, but maybe you don't feel quite that comfortable getting in some kind of a spat with an established star like James Harden. I don't know. Maybe he felt like he needed to back down because he's not from America and he's taking on a player who's almost becoming iconic because he's revolutionizing the way offensive basketball is played. But this is what I don't love about Giannis. You know, I don't love it that he doesn't seem to have that tough guy backbone that when he really gets pushed to the brink, he fights back. He didn't fight back in the Eastern Conference Finals last year against Toronto, and he didn't hold his ground on this one. Your thoughts?
Right. Yeah, well, Skip, here's the thing. Skip, you remember, what was it, the World Classic when Brazil beat Greece? And the guy's like, I got this 40-year-old guy out here kicking this young, you know what. Skip,
he did.
It doesn't matter where you're from. You know what's a slight. You know when you take shots at someone. And how did he think James Harden, Skip, James Harden's an MVP. And you basically took a guy, Kimba, and Kimba's a fine player, but he's not James Harden. And to say James Harden is the hardest to guard. Skip, what to go out on a limb? You're talking about a guy that shoots over 80% from the free throw line, and he's shooting about 13 to 15 free throws a night. He has the step back three that's unguardable. And you go out on a limb. Yeah. Don't play nice now.
No mercy.
Let's take it home. The Golden State Warriors currently have the worst record in the NBA. But if they do hit the lottery, one report says they are not interested in LaMelo Ball, obviously LeVar's youngest of his three sons. This is from Connor Letourneau over the San Francisco Chronicle, who writes, league sources do not believe the Warriors are high on Ball, not because of the drama surrounding his father, but because he's quite flawed for a top three prospect. Ball's court vision and passing ability are superb, but he has yet to prove he can knock down three-pointers consistently, defend NBA athletes, or improve his shot selection. Then the final point made here by the San Francisco Chronicle is they already have a pretty good point guard in Steph Curry. In fact, an all-time great point guard in Steph. So they don't really need the point guard that LaMelo would project to be. So, Shannon Sharpe, are you surprised by this report?
I'm not, Skip. Considering that they're low, if you really look at it, they're loaded at guard. Clay's going to come back. Andrew Wiggins is really a guard. So they have three guards. Now, maybe they package that pick and maybe package that with Wiggins and maybe ship that pick somewhere and get someone else. But I don't think they need any more guards. And shot selection, we used to think the shots that Steph was taking was bad shots until they started falling. And now everybody takes logo threes and they're great shots. Skip, like I said, I haven't really followed the guy's LaMelo's game well enough to really say, well, yeah, he should go number one or where he should go. But I think Steve Kerr has an idea. I think they have an idea of what they how they want to reshape this team moving forward. And it'd be hard pressed for me to see them taking LaMelo Ball with the number one overall pick if they were to get it. Even that aside, because Skip, you remember when LeVar cost. Yeah. Go ahead, Skip.
No, that's all right. Okay, so all I've seen are LaMelo clips. Yeah.
Yes.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. That's all I've seen also, Skip. I haven't really watched this game.
Okay. When I do see the clips, I see gifted. I see ambidextrous. I see a pure shot, but he takes bad shots. I see 6 feet 8 inches tall. I see the tallest of the Ball sons. I see somebody who's going to be pretty spectacular, but I know one team who's sitting at the 6th spot right now that would love to have him, and that would be the Knicks in New York. So with LeVar and LaMelo. I wish we had more time because I got a whole lot more to say, but we are done for today. Remember, we're back tomorrow, 10 to noon Eastern here on Fox Sports 1. Please stay tuned for The Herd with my man Colin Cowherd. Please stay safe. And in the end, most important, please stay home.
No mercy.